Hey, welcome back to the show. Today I'm diving into a hot topic, supplements for perimenopausal women. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to quickly share my philosophy around supplements. I really am a firm believer in testing in order to determine what your body actually needs. We're all unique, and what works wonders for one woman may not be helpful and could even be harmful to another woman. That's why testing and understanding your bio-individual needs is really essential. All right, let's start by addressing the elephant in the room. Not all supplements are created equal, so there are some downsides that I want you to consider. One is lack of quality control. Many supplements on the market today are poorly regulated, meaning you can't always be sure what you're even getting. Some of them may contain fillers, allergens, or even contaminants that could be harming you. And this is why it's really important to look for third-party testing and certifications, which I'll share in a bit. The other thing is the myth that natural equals safe. Just because something is labeled as natural doesn't make it benign or harmless. I say this over and over again. Supplements can have pretty powerful effects on the body, and if they're used incorrectly, can do more harm than good. So let's take vitamin D, for instance. It is one of the most commonly recommended supplements out there, especially in the online world. On Instagram, you will see a lot of these big accounts, especially doctors who will be telling women to take vitamin D, and many times they're selling the supplements, which, I don't fault them for, but it often makes me cringe because we're not all the same and not everybody should be taking vitamin D. And they often don't educate women on the different cofactors that are needed in order to really utilize that vitamin D in the body. So, for example, vitamin K2 and magnesium, these are two cofactors that you should be taking alongside vitamin D. So excess vitamin D can contribute to something called a calcium shell. That's where the calcium builds up in your tissues and disrupts cellular function. So vitamin K2 ensures that calcium is directed to your bones and teeth where we want them, especially as we age, rather than building up in soft tissues like your arteries or your joints. The other thing to consider is magnesium, like I mentioned. So that's going to help activate vitamin D in the body. And many of us are deficient in magnesium. I'll speak to why in a little bit. The other thing to consider is you may not even need to be taking vitamin D. The ranges for vitamin D are quite wide in conventional medicine, and higher isn't always better. And I know a lot of doctors are still telling people that they need these high levels of vitamin D. So when they see them a little on the lower side, they will tell somebody to just supplement with vitamin D, and that's not always the best course of action. Ideally, we want levels in the range of 40 to 60, but this can vary based on individual factors. For instance, I live in New Jersey. We have long winters with little to no sun, although today it's actually pretty beautiful, and I'm going to get outside in a bit. But I'm not going to be laying out in a tank top because it's freezing out. So I know that I'm not going to be making a lot of vitamin D this time of year. So I test multiple times a year because it really is important to see what your level is to determine if you even need to be taking it. And if it is on the lower side, I may supplement with it for a few months here and there. But again, I make sure that I've got the cofactors on board. And that's why I test throughout the year, which I'll speak more on in a bit. All right, so if you are going to be using supplements without testing, quality is really key. I want to give you some tips for finding trustworthy products. So, third-party testing. You want to look for seals from organizations like NSF International, Consumer Lab, or the United States Pharmacopoeia, USP. These will indicate that the product has been independently tested for quality and purity. These companies that put these supplements out should have high standards, as a company as a whole, but also for their suppliers. And you want to make sure that they're following CGMP, which is Current Good Manufacturing Practices. You also want to ensure that they're testing for potency, contaminants, heavy metals, allergens, pesticides, and other agents that could be causing you some harm. Ideally, they would also source organically grown ingredients when possible, but if not, at least they should be using non-GMO. So genetically modified organisms. You want to make sure that they're avoiding that. The other thing is you want transparent sourcing. Reputable brands should provide detailed information about where their ingredients come from and how they're manufactured. And if they're not willing to share that information, it's a bit of a red flag, in my opinion. And then lastly, you want to avoid unnecessary additives. Steer clear of products that have artificial colors, fillers, sugars, or other unnecessary ingredients. All right. So, in my functional health coaching practice, we rely on testing to guide supplement recommendations for our clients. So, the things that we use in order to help us are an HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis. This provides insights into mineral imbalances as well as heavy metal toxicity, which, quite frankly, are critical for overall health, especially in perimenopause when these symptoms start to arise. The other thing is blood work. Blood work is my favorite thing to look at. I am such a nerd. I love getting blood work in because it's gold standard. It's what most doctors are willing to order. And it really does give us so much insight into your health when it's reviewed from a functional health lens. Comprehensive blood work can reveal so much to us, but as well as deficiencies or imbalances in nutrients like iron, as well as vitamin D. And then there's GI map testing or stool testing. This is going to help us understand your gut health, which is foundational for nutrient absorption, hormone production, metabolism, as well as overall health. Testing is really what allows us to pinpoint what your body needs and will help you avoid giving yourself something that you don't need. All that said, while personalized recommendations are best, in my opinion, I do want to give you a handful of supplements that many women in perimenopause may benefit from. So, the first is electrolytes. These can help replenish essential minerals like sodium and potassium in the body, something that we see deficient in many women that we support, especially if you're dealing with fatigue or achiness. Electrolytes can be something really great to replenish. So I personally like the brand Cure. They have hydration packets. I will link to that in the show notes along with a coupon code. The other is magnesium. I mentioned that earlier. Most of us are deficient in magnesium because things like caffeine, alcohol, stress, certain medications will deplete it. So I personally like a powdered magnesium from the brand Seeking Health, or you could even use a topical form in a cream or a spray, which is really good for absorption. Another to consider is prebiotic fiber supplements. So these are going to support your gut health by feeding the beneficial bacteria. One that I really like is Sun Fiber. There are some other really great brands out there. If you have questions, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. Another thing to consider is digestive bitters. They are gentle, they taste pretty good depending on the brand, and they can improve digestion to help your body absorb the nutrients that you're consuming more effectively. And you basically just take that as a spray or a tincture and you put it in your mouth probably about 10 to 15 minutes before your meals. Another to consider is probiotics. So, most probiotic strains don't survive in your digestive tract. Plus, the strains that you may be taking may not be right for you. And too many people will take the same probiotic for years, which can cause an imbalance of bacteria. So, if you are going to take a probiotic, there is a brand that I like, Microbiome Labs. They have spore-based probiotics. So, we do recommend them to clients, but typically after we have done a targeted gut protocol, depending on what imbalances we've found if they did a GI map stool test with us. The brand I like, again, is Microbiome Labs, and they have a product called Megaspore Biotic. And the company is wonderful. They do a lot of testing. I really trust them. And the strains in this probiotic survive without the need for refrigeration, which is a really good thing. All right, the other thing to consider is a B complex. Many women are depleted of B vitamins and not just B12. This is the only B vitamin that most doctors will focus on. I don't understand it. There are many B vitamins and we need all of them for different benefits. So if you do purchase a B complex, you just want to make sure that it's a quality brand with folate versus folic acid. That's going to help with absorption and effectiveness. Another to consider is fish oil. High dose is typically what's needed and will move the needle, especially for inflammation, but it does take time. So you want to look for products that have been tested for heavy metals and contain high levels of EPA and DHA. Another to consider is CoQ10, especially if you're on a statin, which unfortunately many women are on. Statins deplete CoQ10, and it is needed to support energy production and cardiovascular health. I could go on a whole rant about statins and cholesterol, but I'm going to leave that for another episode. And then lastly, amino acids can be incredibly helpful, especially for your mental health, which I know is such a struggle in your perimenopausal years. Ideally, we would get all the amino acids that we need from our diet, especially animal protein. That's why I'm such a big fan of animal protein. But sometimes it's just not enough. Again, because we may not be eating properly, we may not be getting enough protein. If our gut is imbalanced, we're not going to absorb enough. But one in particular is taurine. This amino acid, it can be really great for your mood, sleep, and even reducing anxiety. I personally take it myself when I feel a little anxious. All right, I hope that was helpful to you. And I just want to remind you that supplements are just that, supplemental to a healthy diet and lifestyle. They are not a replacement for the foundations of health, like eating a nutrient-dense diet, getting quality sleep, daily movement, proper hydration, and managing your stress as best you can. So if you're unsure about where to start or you want personalized guidance, my team and I would love to help you. So just apply to work with us. Or if you really just want some quick feedback on what you're currently taking and some guidance, grab my perimenopause audit. That is a new service that I am offering. I will link to that in the show notes. And thank you so much for tuning in today. If you found this episode to be helpful, please do share it with a friend and leave us a review. That really helps us get in front of more women who need our help. All right, until next time. Hey, before you go, if you're struggling to navigate the overwhelming world of hormone replacement therapy, feel dismissed by doctors, and can't afford to spend thousands to get help, check out my brand new course, Perimenopause HRT Roadmap. This easy to understand self-guided course is designed to give you clarity, confidence, and knowledge to decide if HRT is right for you. No fancy health jargon that'll leave you confused, no black and white thinking that leaves you feeling alone and without options. With Perimenopause HRT Roadmap, you'll have a much better understanding of HRT, gain confidence to advocate for yourself, and feel your best in perimenopause and beyond. Get all the details in the show notes. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.